Today's message is entitled Consequence, the Justice of God. You know, if you think of it, life is full of consequence, right? You study hard, the consequence of that is you get good grades. The consequence of that is you get a good job. If you try to exercise, I'm trying to exercise. I'm giving myself about 9 months to really lose weight. I think I lost more or less 10 pounds already. So, and there will be a consequence if I'm faithful to that and on my exercise and on my eating habits. The consequence of that is I'll have a better life, a healthier life. My medical bills in the future will hopefully be lesser because of that. And you know, when I was thinking about this, who you are today, this very moment, is a summation of all the consequences of your decision. I mean, there's certain things that's beyond your control, like my white hair. I have no control on that. I can have it colored, but the reality of that is it's that. But most things are within your control, and you are what you are is because of decisions you made in the past. You're the consequences of your decisions in the past. Who your spouse is, the quality of your marriage, your career, your spiritual level. Everything has a consequence. It's just a matter of time. And that concept of consequence is really a play on the justice of God. Because God is just, there is a guarantee that we will experience the consequences both of our thoughts and our action. Because He's a just God. Stephen Covey, a famous writer, said this: sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. Everything has consequences. Because we have a just God who will bless the good and punish the evil. And as we look into our passage today, you will see a clear effect on the consequences of certain decisions and actions of Jacob in the past. We're looking at Genesis chapter 29 today, verse 15 to 30. And verse 15 goes, then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my relative, you should therefore serve me for nothing. Tell me, what shall your wages be? And we know the story. Jacob came there, saw Rachel, fell in love with her, love at first sight, wants to marry her, verbalized that to Laban. And here we catch the story. Jacob was working already for Laban for about 1 month. And there Laban realized and said this, because you're my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? And the answer there is yes. Then what shall your wages be? You know, any grand plan to deceive and to defraud a person hinges on you gaining the trust and credibility. It's hard to defraud somebody if you don't have, if you don't trust them. If you don't trust them, it's hard to defraud you. But here, we see Laban setting down the groundworks to defraud Jacob. And what he does here is, he emphasizes what? By the way, Jacob, remember, we're relatives. Because you are my relative. Oh, yeah. Relatives, they look out for each other. They're concerned for each other's welfare. That's why in Chinese, most Chinese businessmen, who are their employees, trusted employees? Probably their relative, right? If they run out of relatives, another Chinese person. But first of all, it's Chinese relatives. Why? If you're my relative, I can trust you. You will not cheat on me. I remember watching The Godfather 1. And there, Michael Corleone wanted to kill his brother-in-law. Because the brother-in-law not only beats up her sister, but also was instrumental in the death of his older brother, Santino. That's the name of the older brother. And there, during that time, Michael was assuring the brother-in-law that, don't worry, you're my brother-in-law. I would not leave my daughter, my sister, a widow. She's pregnant with your child. In fact, she gave birth and I'm the godfather. We're relatives. No need to worry. Well, true enough, in Godfather fashion, Michael had him killed. He gained the trust first, then he went for the kill. And this is what's happening here. When Laban said, we're relatives, he was trying to gain the trust. Kamag-anak tayo. We don't fool each other. Seemingly, he was concerned for the welfare of Jacob. And says, you know what? You shouldn't work for me for free. Get the pay. By saying that, he was changing the dynamics between relatives to a worker. Because during that time, relatives who works for the family were not supposed to get paid. That's why the first month, there was no pay. And I would guess, during that first month of knowing more about Jacob, he realized something. Jacob indeed had no money to pay him for the bride price. Verse 16 and 17. Now Laban had 2 daughters. So the author now introduces the two daughters in play of Laban. The name of the older is Leah, and the name of the younger is Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel's was beautiful of form and face. 2 daughters, Leah and Rachel. 2 characteristic. Leah, that word means what? A cow. Specifically, a wild cow. Not that beautiful, huh? While Rachel comes from the word ewe, E-W-E, a lamb, gentle, right? Compared to a wild owl. And this is normal because they're a grazing family. A wild cow. I don't know how a wild, what's a bull? I don't know what's a wild cow. Then they describe each one. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful of form and face. I take it, because commentators are confused. What do you mean by weak? Some take it as a positive sign, some take it as a negative sign. I take it as a negative sign because they're trying to compare the two. A wild cow and an ewe, and a beautiful form and face, and a weak eye. So I'm guessing this wild cow girl has a droopy eyes. Pretty weak. While Rachel is what? Beautiful in form and face. Not only is she sexy, form, she was beautiful. While the other was a big, fat, wild, droopy cow. No wonder no one wants to marry Leah. Right? I mean, if you're in the position of Jacob, who shall you choose? It's easy. Rachel. I choose Rachel. No wonder in verse 18 it says, now Jacob loved Rachel. So he said, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel. Love at first sight. To be honest, I can relate. When I first saw the card, no. It was love at first sight. You know, it's little surprise, right? For Jacob to fall in love with Rachel. But what's surprising here, because sabi ko nga, she's beautiful and she's sexy. While the other one is old, cow-looking, a wild and droopy eyes. No surprise. But what surprise is the price that Jacob was willing to pay. 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel. 7 years. No, unlike his grandfather who sent a servant with 10 camels, gifts, with slaves, Jacob had nothing to give. Zero. He's a pauper. He was not prepared to give any monetary thing. And Laban knows that. He's been living with him already for a month. As I said, not like Rebecca when they gave the 10 camels and some gold jewelries. The very next day, they told Rebecca, go. It's okay for you to leave. So here, Jacob has nothing to offer. He couldn't pay the bride price. No, the bride price is normally is part of a marriage contract. This is the payment of the groom or the family of the groom to the family of the bride. That money that's paid is a trust fund to support the wife in case she gets divorced or the husband dies. Because during that time, women are not allowed to work for a living. That's why Jesus said, you are to take care of orphans and widows. Because widows typically ends up as either beggars or prostitutes. That's why they have a bride price to ensure that the future of their daughter. Now, the bride price is placed in the Bible a maximum of 50 shekels. Maximum. You can only pay the bride price for 50 shekels. Now, but typically, no one pays 50 shekels. What's normally paid is between 30 shekels to 40 shekels. Typically. Max is 50, but why give max, right? So give 30 to 40. Now, the average salary per year is 10 shekels. So what is happening here? Jacob is paying a premium. He should work only 3 to 4 years. But he was so in love and maybe pride, right? I can pay by my service. Instead of 3 to 4 years of service, maximum 5, he is willing to give 7. In fact, that's illegal. You cannot be slave for 7 years because every 7 years is the year of the Jubilee. Max 6 to be slave. So, 3 to 4 years is the normal pay. Maximum 5 for a bride price. For a slave, maximum of 6. But he was willing to pay 7 years of work. That's how much he's in love with Rebecca. What am I saying? Rachel, their names are kind of... Rachel, okay. Rachel. Yes, that's how much he's in love with Rachel. That shows the intensity of his affection. I mean, such good offer. Who would not accept that? Parang double. 3 to 4, I give 7. Okay. That's why in verse 19, Laban said, "It is better that I give to you that than to give her to another man. Stay with me." Now, again, Laban is kind of ambiguous. He does not explicitly agree to give Rachel. He says, "It's better that I give her to you." But who's the her? I mean, we would assume it's Rachel, right? But he never specified who the her is. Note, when Jacob requested who to marry, he said, "Rachel, your youngest daughter." So in the contract, it should have stated the actual name, because he was asking specifically for Rachel, the younger daughter. But Laban never gives the name of the daughter. He was trying to keep his option open. Because maybe along along 7 years of service, maybe Leo might get married. Who knows? But he has his option open. Right? He doesn't promise to give Rachel, but he said, I will give her to you, without specifying. And we learn, right? After 7 years, that wild cow is still unmarried. Verse 20. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of his love for her. You know, that few days, that 7 years was like what? Few days. I mean, if you're in love, you're in love. Right? I think I shared this. Whenever my wife, when I was courting my wife, I was living in San Pablo. Not that far. Kind of far. And I would love to have lunch with her in Ortigas. Honestly, I never found it far. I know. It's so near Ortigas. Semi, right? I would leave the office mga 10:30, 11, have lunch with her, be back mga 3 or 4. Wow, tapos na yung work ko. Time to go to the tennis court. Now, my kids know. Anything outside BF is far. But I have an exception. Except if Royo wants to eat somewhere. But I beg her, please. But here, 7 years, it's like what? A few days. Because Jacob was deeply in love with Rachel. Right? She was hoping to marry Rachel and return to his homeland. But all of this was shattered. He paid a high price, which seems like a few days, to get the love of his life. But treachery lurks. Verse 21. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife." This is after 7 years, which looks like a week or 2. "Give me my wife, for my time is complete, that I may go into her." Note, Jacob took the initiative. Laban was kind of cold about the idea. He didn't offer it, okay, 7 years is up. Here's Rachel now. No, he took the initiative. And the wording there is, give me my wife. He was demanding it already. There was no please. And the wording there shows impatience and frustration. I demand. I've done my 7 years. Give her now to me. Verse 22, Laban gathered all the men of the place and made a feast. Interesting, right? Laban had no reply. We don't know what's really on his mind, his thoughts. He didn't say yes. He just went through the motion of a wedding. You know, weddings during that time is a process. It involves, when the day comes, a parade of taking the wife, of taking the bride from her home, going to the husband's home, and going back to the girl's house. After that, they would read the marriage contract. If everything has been fulfilled, if the bride price has been paid. After that, they would have a large feast to celebrate their joining together. Typically, that feast is 1 week. And after that, the couple will try to live together in the house of the bride. Is the normal practice. But there, the girl would stay there for several months, and the husband is allowed to make visits to the wife. The wife will only live outside the house of the parents the moment she becomes pregnant. The moment she becomes pregnant, that indicates it's time for the new couple to start their own home. So Laban, without saying anything, did that feast. But interesting, the word feast here is miste. The Hebrew word miste, which means what? Particularly a drinking feast. In a sense, like Oktoberfest, right? Naglasingan. It's a drinking feast here. Verse 23. Drinking and feast for 1 week. That's a lot of drinking. Oktoberfest is what? 1 month? Is it? More or less. Verse 23. Now in the evening, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to him, and Jacob went into her. A lot of people are wondering, how did Jacob miss that? The wife was brought, and it was not Rebecca, Rachel, but Leah instead. Because clearly he had no idea. And basically the reason for that is 3 things. 1, it was night. 2, she had a veil, which is very typical. 3, he was drunk. They got him drunk so that the switch would not be as noticeable. I remember my cousin, whenever we went out before and he gets drunk, she would see a girl and he would ask me, Bobby, maganda ba yun? And I would look at the girl, oh man, really ugly, pare, pangit. Hindi, maganda siya, Bob. Hindi, pangit, pare. And he once approached the girl and said, pare, wag, pangit, pangit. I mean, your senses are awak. Then we would go to his car, and I would tell him, pare, lasing ka na. Bob, hindi ako lasing. Pare, lasing ka na. I'll drive, hindi ako lasing. Oh, let's go to the car. He'll open it. It's not his car. Oh, lisang ka na. Lasing ka na. And when you're drunk, that would pass. Oh, here's your wife. And all along, he thought it was Rachel. Laban also gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah as a maid. That's very normal. When a girl is married off, a maid is included. And that shows that my family is kind of privileged, and it helps perform the duties of the wife in keeping the home. In fact, in this case, as we read next week or verses to follow, Jacob had kids with the maid also. That's why, remember when Abraham could not have a kid with Rebecca, Sarah, they get Hagar, right? Her maid servant. That's very common during the time. So they went to bed, drunk, consummated their marriage. Next day, so it came about in verse 25, in the morning, that behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this that you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served with you? Why then have you deceived me? It was Leah, the cow, the wild cow with droopy eyes. 7 years. Can you imagine his shock? He wakes up, looks. Oh wow, what are you doing here? Right? 7 years you were working for the pretty and sexy Rachel, and you find out you're with the ugly sister. The morning light, the sobriety makes it possible for Jacob to realize the ruse, the sham that just took place. And Jacob's outrage echoes the very words of his mother, Rebecca, when Rebecca said, what you have done to him, pertaining to Jacob. He fooled Jacob, right? And now, what have you done to me? Consequence. The Bible tells us in Luke 6:31, treat others the same way you want them to treat you. Do unto others what you want others do unto you. Eventually, Laban will also be deceived. Now, what's the problem here? You realize that the girl that you went to bed with last night was not Rachel, but Leah. So what? Well, there's a problem there. Their law says, go to Deuteronomy lang. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 22. Deuteronomy 22 verse 28 to 29. And it says, if a man finds a girl who is a virgin, who is not engaged, and sees her and lies with her, and they are discovered, then the man who lays with her shall give her to the girl's father 50 shekels of silver. And she shall become his wife because he has violated her. He cannot divorce her in all his days. Ade patay, shotgun marriage, forced to good. Now she's really now his wife, based on their culture. Now, so dismayed, Jacob said, what is this that you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served you? Why then have you deceived me? He was pressing Laban, explain. Why did you do this to me? Why did you marry off the older sister? Laban responded, it is not the practice of our place to marry off the younger before the firstborn. He said, oh, that's our culture here. He was trying to justify it. But his justification is weak. I mean, if that was the intent, shouldn't he have mentioned that in the contract? Na, hey, by the way, you want my younger daughter, right? But you have to get married first the older. He never said that. He wasn't clear. Because an honest man would have mentioned their customs and placed it in their contract. So his action of self-righteousness is really hypocritical. He was just giving an excuse. You know, during that time, it is really their practice to marry off first the elder. And the reason for that is because if the younger was married first, it is shaming the older. And it's implying that, the older is not beautiful. That's why she was not married off first. And marriage at that time was used to obtain status and prestige and wealth in the family. So if the older is bypassed, it sends a bad signal that the older is not beautiful. It's not a good catch. That's why it's the tradition to do that. Not only that, the older becomes a burden because the family now must continue to support the child forevermore. Verse 27. Laban replied, Okay. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also for the service which you shall serve me for another 7 years. I mean, what's implied here is Jacob doesn't want to continue. Huh? Jacob doesn't want to, but Laban said, no, complete this week. And if you complete this week, I will give you Rachel, but give me another 7 years. Laban had him over the barrel. The only concession that is giving now to Jacob is, you don't have to have, you'll not wait for another 7 years to get Rachel. You'll get her now. You'll get her now, just finish this week, I'll give her to you, but you need to serve me another 7 years. So Laban was able to do two things here. He was able to marry both of his daughter, and secondly, he was able to get another 7 years with Jacob. 28. Jacob did so and completed her week, and he gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife. He accepts the offer. Laban also gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maid. I mean, few marriages could have this worse start. Really bad. Verse 30. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and indeed he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served with Laban for another 7 years. Unlike the first 7 years that looks like a few days, now there was no mention like it was like few days. And some commentators are saying it's because of that they say that those 7 years was with sorrow and difficulty and strife. Imagine, right? You're married to the girl that you don't love. Oh, that's hard. Now, this passage, we cannot escape the connection of this passage and all the deceptions that Jacob did to his father and to his brothers. What do we realize here from this story? The children of God, the chosen people of God, in this case Jacob, is not immune from God's discipline and punishment and consequence. It does not mean that you're a child of God, you will not suffer the consequences of your wrong decision and your mistakes and your sin. We're not immune to that. Amos chapter 3 verse 2 says, "You only have I known of all the families of the earth, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities." Even the chosen people of God will be punished. They will receive the consequences of their actions. Go to Hebrews chapter 12, please. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 5 says, "And have you forgotten the exhortation which is addressed to you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor faint when you are reproved by him. For those whom the Lord loves, he disciplines, and he scourges every son whom he receives." We're not exempted simply because we're a child of God. In fact, because we are a child of God, we expect to be disciplined. Numbers 32 verse 23 says, "Be sure that your sin will find you out." There will be consequences of all our sinful action. Go to Galatians, please. Galatians chapter 6. Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. "Do not be deceived. Make no mistake. Do not mislead yourself." That's the meaning of the word deceive there. Make no mistake. God is not mocked. You cannot mock God. For whatever a man sows, this he will also reap. There are consequences, good and bad. In 2 Chronicles 36 verse 16, and I read, "But they continually mock the messengers of God, despise his word, and scoff at his prophet, until the wrath of the Lord arose against his people." People were mocking God by what? Despising his word. Scoffing at the prophet. We might say, Bob, I don't mock God. Do you despise his word? Do you take the word of God lightly? For whatever a man sows, this he will also reap. this is not a guarantee that every person will receive in this life his just punishment or reward for his behaviors. But know this for sure. God's nature and God's character assures us that one's behavior will have some consequences, either here or in the future, either in this life or in the life to come. A man will reap what he sows. We saw earlier how Jacob took advantage of the blindness of his father in deceiving his father. And we see here Laban using the darkness of the night to outwit Jacob. Similar. We saw Jacob trying to use alcohol to deceive his father Isaac. If you remember a few weeks ago. And here again, we see Laban using alcohol again to deceive now Jacob. We saw Jacob gave a bad bargain to Esau, giving him a bowl of stew for the birthright of Esau. And here we saw Laban give a bad bargain to Jacob by giving him Leah for the 7 years of service. A man will reap what he sows. There is consequences to our action. And the thing is, sometimes we don't realize that because there's a time lapse between the time you commit the action to the time the consequence is fulfilled. And we think that God did not notice or that there is no consequence. No, it's just a matter of time. In the case of Jacob, that's about 10 years. From the time he deceived to the time he found out that he was deceived. But because God is just, for sure, there will be consequences in our life. Now, we have to realize that this consequence could be personal to us or could be our family. A lot of times, we seldom realize the implication of consequences in our family on the way we live our life. A lot of parents are now so irresponsible in the way they live that the legacy that they give to their kids is not good. I remember a song. Have you heard the song, The Cats in the Cradle? Have you heard that song? Let me read to you the song. My child arrived just the other day. He came to the world in the usual way, but there were planes to catch and bills to pay. He learned to walk while I was away. As he was talking, for I knew it, and he grew, he said, I'm going to be like you, Dad. You know, I'm going to be like you. The Cats in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon, Little Boys Blue and the Man in the Moon. When you coming home, Dad, I don't know when, but we'll get together then. You know, we'll have a good time then. My son turned 10 just the other day. He said, thanks for the ball, Dad. Come, let's play. Can you teach me how to throw? I said, not today. I got a lot to do, he said. That's okay. He walked away, but his smile never dimmed. It said, I'm going to be like him. Yeah, I know I'm going to be like him one day. and the cats in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man on the moon. When are you coming home, Dad? I don't know when, but we'll get together then. You know, we'll have a good time then. Well, he came from college just the other day, so much like a man, I just had to say, Son, I'm proud of you. Can you sit for a while? He shook his head and he said with a smile, What I'd like, Dad, is to borrow your car keys. See you later. Can I have them, please? And the cats in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man on the moon. When are you coming home, son? I don't know when. But we'll get together then, Dad. You know, we'll have a good time then. I've long since retired. My son moved away. I called him up just the other day. I said, I'd like to see you if you don't mind. He said, I'd love to, Dad, if I could find the time. You see, my new job is a hassle. The kids has the flu. But it's sure nice talking to you, Dad. It's been sure nice talking to you. As I hung up the phone, it occurred to me, he'd grown up just like me. My boy was just like me. And the cat in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man on the moon. There is consequence to our action. It's just a matter of time. And that could be a good news or a bad news. It all depends on what are you sowing today. If you're sowing deceit, if you're sowing anger, if you're sowing lies, if you're sowing busyness, what shall you reap? But if you are sowing by investing time with your wife, with your kids, if you're sowing in the lives of other people, if you're sowing better relationship with your spouse, then the justice of God is good. Today we saw how the justice of God works. We will reap what we sow. That's both the good news and the bad news. Question is this: what are you sowing today? My desire is that by these examples shown by Jacob, we will be encouraged not to follow his way, but to start sowing the things that will have a better fruit in times to come. Thus says the Lord.